Our story starts in the cozy suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina, where I, Mike Thompson, a middle-aged software engineer, have lived a seemingly blissful life with my wife, Emily. We've been married for nearly 15 years, and together we have two beautiful kids, Jason, who's 10, and Lily, who just turned 7. Emily and I met in college, and our relationship grew from late-night study sessions to long walks in the park, eventually blossoming into what I thought was an unbreakable bond. She was my best friend, my confidant, and the love of my life. We built our lives around a routine that brought comfort and stability. I'd wake up early, brew a pot of coffee, and go for a run before heading to the office. Emily, a stay-at-home mom, took care of the kids and managed the household with grace. Our weekends were filled with family outings, soccer games, and movie nights. It was the kind of life that made you feel lucky, almost invincible. However, over the past few months, I began noticing subtle changes in Emily's behavior. At first, they were so minor that I brushed them off as normal fluctuations in our daily rhythm. Emily started spending more time on her phone, often giggling at messages she never shared with me. She became more distant, her once warm and inviting demeanor replaced with a cold, distracted air. I tried to ignore the growing sense of unease, chalking it up to stress, or perhaps a touch of midlife crisis. But the signs became harder to ignore. Emily began dressing up more than usual, even on days when she had no plans to leave the house. She would claim to be meeting an old friend or running errands, but would come back home hours later with little to show for it. Our intimate moments dwindled, replaced by her constant excuses of being too tired or not in the mood. The Emily I knew was slipping away, replaced by someone I could barely recognize. One evening, as I sat alone on the couch, a glass of whiskey in hand, I decided to confront my growing suspicions. Emily had gone out again, this time claiming to have a book club meeting. As I scrolled through social media, I stumbled upon a photo that set my heart racing. It was a picture of Emily, smiling broadly at a restaurant I didn't recognize, accompanied by a man I had never seen before. My mind raced with questions, but I pushed them aside, convincing myself that there must be a reasonable explanation. Weeks passed, and Emily's behavior continued to fuel my doubts. The distance between us grew, and our conversations became strained, filled with awkward silences and forced small talk. I found myself yearning for the days when we could talk for hours about anything and everything. The sense of betrayal gnawed at me, but I couldn't bring myself to confront her without concrete evidence. One night, as I lay in bed unable to sleep, I decided to investigate further. I waited until Emily was fast asleep before quietly slipping out of bed and heading to her home office. My heart pounded as I booted up her computer, praying that I wouldn't find anything incriminating. But as I sifted through her emails and messages, a horrifying truth began to unfold. There were countless exchanges with the man from the photo, revealing a level of intimacy and familiarity that no friend should have. The man's name was Jack, and from what I could gather, he was a colleague from her brief stint at a local marketing firm. Their messages were filled with flirtatious banter, plans for secret rendezvous, and expressions of love that made my blood boil. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling a mix of rage, sorrow, and disbelief. How could she do this to us, to our family? As dawn broke, I returned to bed, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. The woman I had loved and trusted for so many years had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way. My thoughts raced with possibilities of what to do next. Should I confront her? Should I gather more evidence? Should I tell our children? The world I had known, the life we had built together, was crumbling before my eyes. I felt like a stranger in my own home, living a lie that I could no longer ignore. The time had come to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. But how? And when? The questions haunted me as I drifted into a restless sleep, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The morning after my harrowing discovery, I could barely look at Emily without feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. She went about her routine as if nothing had changed, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to demand answers, but I knew I needed more. Something undeniable. Something she couldn't weasel her way out of with lies and excuses. I started paying closer attention to her habits, noting the times she'd leave the house and the excuses she'd give. I felt like a detective in my own home, piecing together fragments of her deceit. It wasn't long before I found my opportunity. One Friday afternoon, Emily announced she was going out for lunch with her friend Sarah. The name triggered something in my memory. Sarah was out of town for a conference, a detail Emily had mentioned in passing just a week ago. My heart pounded with a mix of dread and determination. I had to follow her. I waited a few minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and slipped out the door. Keeping a safe distance, I tailed her car through the winding streets of our suburb into the heart of downtown Raleigh. She parked near a small, trendy cafe I'd never been to, but one I recognized from their photos. I found a spot across the street and watched as she walked in, glancing around as if checking to make sure she wasn't followed. Moments later, Jack appeared, and my suspicions were confirmed. They greeted each other with a warmth and familiarity that made my stomach turn. I watched from my car as they found a table near the window, their heads close together, sharing a private world that excluded me completely. I felt a burning sensation in my chest, a mix of fury and heartbreak. This was it, the moment of undeniable proof. I debated my next move, torn between storming in and exposing their betrayal or continuing to watch, gathering more evidence. But as they leaned in closer, their faces inches apart, I knew I couldn't just sit there. When their lips finally met in a tender, passionate kiss, something snapped inside me. My vision blurred with rage, and before I knew it, I was out of the car, crossing the street with determined strides. The bell above the cafe door jingled as I walked in, but neither of them noticed. They were lost in each other, oblivious to the world around them. I approached their table, my heart pounding in my ears. When Emily finally looked up and saw me, her eyes widened in shock and horror. "Mike, what are you doing here?" she stammered, pulling away from Jack as if she'd been burned. I didn't respond. Instead, I grabbed the edge of their table and with a surge of adrenaline, flipped it over. Plates, glasses, and silverware clattered to the floor, drawing the attention of every patron in the cafe. Jack scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of surprise and fear. "You son of a bitch!" I roared, my fist connecting with his jaw before he had a chance to react. The impact sent him sprawling to the ground, clutching his face in pain. Chaos erupted around us, with the other customers and staff shouting and trying to intervene. Emily screamed, a sound that cut through the noise like a knife, but I barely heard it. All I could see was red. Jack tried to get up, but I was on him, landing another punch that sent him reeling. He managed to push me off, scrambling to his feet and backing away, his hands up in a defensive gesture. "Mike, stop! Please, stop!" Emily cried, grabbing my arm. I shook her off, turning to face her with a fury I had never felt before. "How could you, Emily? How could you do this to me? To our family?" I shouted, my voice trembling with emotion. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to find words. "Mike, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, just let me explain." I wasn't ready to hear her excuses, not yet. I took a step back, my hands trembling. The cafe staff finally intervened, pulling Jack away and asking me to leave. The manager threatened to call the police if I didn't calm down. But I couldn't care less. My entire world had just imploded. I turned to Emily one last time, the woman I had loved for so many years now, a stranger before me. "We're done, Emily. You've destroyed everything." With that, I walked out of the cafe, leaving behind a scene of shattered plates, stunned onlookers, and a wife who had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing with thoughts of what to do next. My hands ached from the punches I had thrown, and my heart ached even more from the betrayal I had uncovered. As I pulled into the driveway, I knew there was no going back. The life I had known was over, and the road ahead was uncertain. But one thing was clear. Emily's betrayal had unleashed a storm, and I was determined to weather it, no matter the cost. When I got home, I was greeted by the quiet stillness of an empty house. Emily had not yet returned, giving me the time I needed to gather my thoughts and plan my next move. I walked into the living room, the scene of so many happy family moments now tainted by the bitter realization of her betrayal. The pictures on the walls, the toys scattered around. Everything reminded me of the life we had built together, now on the brink of destruction. I called my parents, my voice shaking as I explained the situation. They were shocked and concerned, their voices filled with sympathy and support. I told them I was coming over with the kids and that I needed some time to figure things out. They agreed without hesitation, their love and understanding a small comfort in the midst of my turmoil. I packed an overnight bag for Jason and Lily, trying to keep my hands steady as I gathered their essentials. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and a deep, aching sense of loss. How could Emily do this to us? How could she risk everything we had for a fling with some guy? When the kids came home from school, I did my best to put on a brave face. I didn't want them to see the cracks in our family just yet. "Hey kiddos, we're going to visit Grandma and Grandpa for a little while, okay? Go grab your favorite toys and we'll head out." Jason and Lily were excited, their innocent joy a stark contrast to the chaos brewing beneath the surface. I drove to my parents' house, the familiar route feeling strangely surreal. My mind kept replaying the scene at the cafe, the look of shock and guilt on Emily's face, the anger and pain that had fueled my actions. When we arrived, my parents welcomed us with open arms. My mom hugged me tightly, her eyes filled with worry. "Mike, we're here for you, whatever you need." "Thanks, Mom," I whispered, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I just need some time to think." They took the kids inside, distracting them with snacks and games while I sat down with my dad in the living room. He poured us both a drink, his expression serious. "Mike, what happened?" I told him everything. The messages, the rendezvous, the kiss, the confrontation at the cafe. My dad listened quietly, his face a mask of concern and anger. When I finished, he sighed heavily. "I'm so sorry, son. I can't believe Emily would do something like this. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "I feel like my whole world has been turned upside down. I can't just let her get away with this, but I don't want to make things worse for the kids either." My dad nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "You need to confront her, Mike. Lay it all out on the table. But do it here, where you have support. We'll take the kids out for a while so you can talk." I agreed, grateful for his support. After settling the kids in, I called Emily. Her voice was shaky when she answered, no doubt anticipating the fallout from our earlier encounter. "Mike, where are you? We need to talk." "We're at my parents' house. Come over here. We need to settle this." There was a pause, and then she agreed. "I'll be there soon." My parents took the kids out to the park, giving me the space I needed for what was sure to be an explosive confrontation. I paced the living room, rehearsing what I wanted to say, my emotions swinging wildly between fury and heartbreak. When Emily arrived, she looked disheveled and tearful, a far cry from the composed woman I had known. She stood in the doorway, her eyes pleading. "Mike, please, let me explain." "Explain?" I snapped, my anger boiling over. "What's there to explain, Emily? You've been cheating on me. You've destroyed our family for what? Some fling?" Tears streamed down her face as she stepped inside. "It wasn't just a fling, Mike. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Please, just listen to me." I gestured for her to sit, my hands trembling with the effort to control my rage. "Fine, talk, but make it quick." She sat down, her shoulders slumped in defeat. "I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt you and the kids. But things haven't been right between us for a long time, Mike. We've been growing apart, and I felt so alone. Jack was there for me. He made me feel wanted again." "Growing apart?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You didn't even try to fix things with me, Emily. You just went straight to him. How could you do that?" She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "I don't know, Mike. I was confused and lonely. It just happened, but I never stopped loving you. I'm so sorry." I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. "You say you love me, but love isn't supposed to hurt like this. How do you expect me to trust you again?" She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. "I don't know, Mike. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut all ties with Jack. Please, just give me a chance." I shook my head, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. "I don't know if I can, Emily. You've broken something that might never be fixed." The tension between us was palpable, a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. My parents returned with the kids, their cheerful voices a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere. Emily looked at them, her expression one of pure anguish. "Please, Mike. For the kids." I sighed, feeling the weight of the decision ahead. "We'll talk more later. For now, you should go." Emily nodded. Her shoulders slumped as she stood up. "Okay, I'll go. But please, think about what I said." As she left, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The confrontation had been brutal, but it was far from over. I knew we had a long road ahead, filled with difficult choices and painful conversations. But for now, I was grateful for the support of my family and the chance to begin figuring out how to move forward, one step at a time. As the days passed, the weight of Emily's betrayal settled heavily on my shoulders. I tried to focus on the kids, keeping their routines as normal as possible, but every time I saw their innocent faces, I was reminded of the life Emily and I had built, a life now shattered by her infidelity. I knew I needed to do something, not just for my own sense of justice, but to protect my children from the fallout of their mother's actions. My parents continued to support me, providing a safe and stable environment for Jason and Lily. They kept the kids entertained and distracted, allowing me the time and space to process my emotions and think about what to do next. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't just let Emily and Jack get away with their betrayal. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat down with my dad to discuss my thoughts. "Dad, I need to do something. I can't just let them walk away unscathed. They've destroyed our family, and they need to face the consequences." My dad nodded, his expression serious. "I understand, Mike, but you need to be smart about this. You don't want to do anything that could backfire and make things worse for you and the kids." I knew he was right. Revenge, if not carefully planned, could easily spiral out of control. I needed to be calculated, to hit them where it hurt without jeopardizing my own future or that of my children. The next day, I took a leave of absence from work and hired a private investigator. I needed more information about Jack, where he lived, where he worked, and any other details that could be useful. The investigator was efficient, and within a few days I had a comprehensive dossier on Jack. He was a mid-level manager at a local marketing firm, married with 2 kids of his own. The irony of it all made me seethe with anger. Jack had his own family, yet he had no qualms about tearing mine apart. Armed with this information, I devised a plan. I wanted to expose Jack's affair in the most public and humiliating way possible. I created an anonymous email account and gathered all the evidence I had collected, the incriminating messages, photos of their meetings, and even a few recordings of their conversations that I had managed to obtain through the investigator. It was a damning compilation that left no room for doubt about their affair. I sent the evidence to Jack's wife, making sure she received it on a Monday morning, just as she was starting her week. I could only imagine the chaos it would cause in Jack's household, and I took a grim satisfaction in knowing that he would now face the same pain and betrayal I had endured. Next, I targeted Jack's professional life. I sent the same evidence to his boss and a few key colleagues at his firm, framing it as a concerned third party worried about the company's reputation. I knew that the marketing industry thrived on image and trust, and a scandal like this could severely damage Jack's standing within the firm. The thought of him losing his job and facing professional ruin gave me a sense of vindication. As for Emily, I decided to hit her where it hurt the most, her social circle. I compiled the evidence into a neat package and sent it anonymously to our friends and neighbors. I wanted everyone to know what she had done, to see her for the deceitful person she had become. I knew it would lead to gossip and judgment, but I didn't care. She needed to face the consequences of her actions. In the meantime, I continued to act as if nothing had happened, keeping the kids' routines stable and pretending to co-parent amicably with Emily. We had agreed to take things slow, to try counseling for the sake of the kids, but I knew deep down that our marriage was beyond repair. I was merely biding my time, waiting for the fallout of my actions to hit. The first signs of my plan's success came a few days later. Emily received a flurry of calls and messages from friends, their tones ranging from concerned to outright accusatory. She came over to my parents' house, her face pale and drawn. "Mike, did you do this? Did you send those emails?" I met her gaze without flinching. "Yes, Emily, I did. The world deserves to know the truth about you and Jack. You brought this on yourself." She looked like she was about to cry, but I felt no sympathy. "Mike, this is cruel. You're destroying my life." "You destroyed our life first," I replied coldly. "Now you get to face the consequences." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of drama. Jack's wife left him, taking their kids with her. His firm launched an internal investigation, and he was eventually fired for violating company policy. Emily became a social pariah, her once close friends now avoiding her like the plague. I took no joy in their suffering, but I felt a grim sense of justice. Through it all, I remained focused on my kids, trying to shield them from the worst of the fallout. I explained to them in age-appropriate terms that Mommy and Daddy were going through a tough time, but that we both loved them very much. They took the news with the resilience only children possess, their innocence a beacon of hope in the midst of the chaos. As the dust began to settle, I knew I had to think about the future. Emily's betrayal had changed everything, but I was determined to rebuild my life and create a stable, loving environment for Jason and Lily. It was time to move forward, to find a way to heal and start anew. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time. Several months had passed since I had enacted my plan for revenge, and the dust was finally beginning to settle. Emily's social life had disintegrated, and Jack's professional and personal lives lay in ruins. My focus remained on my children and trying to rebuild some semblance of normalcy for them. Emily and I continued to live separately, maintaining a careful facade of cooperation for the sake of the kids. But beneath the surface, a multitude of unresolved emotions festered. Counseling sessions had been more about damage control than actual healing, and I knew we were merely delaying the inevitable. It was time to have one final conversation, the one that would determine the future of our relationship and our family. We agreed to meet at a quiet park halfway between my parents' house and the apartment Emily had rented. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the trees shedding their leaves in a kaleidoscope of reds and golds. I arrived early, the weight of what was about to happen pressing heavily on my shoulders. I sat on a bench, watching a group of kids playing nearby, their laughter a painful reminder of the innocence we were trying to protect. Emily arrived a few minutes later, her face drawn and tired. She had lost weight, and her eyes bore the marks of sleepless nights. She sat down beside me, her presence both familiar and alien. For a moment, we simply sat in silence, the enormity of the moment hanging between us. "Mike," she began, her voice trembling, "I'm so sorry for everything. I know I've hurt you more than I can ever make up for. I don't even know where to start." I looked at her, the woman I had once loved more than anything in the world. "Emily, I've thought about this moment 1,000 times. I've gone through every possible outcome in my head, and I've realized something. We can't go back. What you did broke something fundamental in our relationship. Trust, love, respect. It's all gone." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "I know, Mike. I understand that. I've been trying to figure out how we got here, and I realize now that I should have come to you with my feelings instead of turning to someone else. But it's too late for that now." "Yes, it is," I said, my voice steady. "But we have to think about Jason and Lily. They deserve stability and love, even if it means we have to go our separate ways to give it to them." She nodded, wiping away her tears. "You're right. They deserve the best we can give them, and I know that continuing to drag this out is only hurting them more. I want to do whatever it takes to make this as painless as possible for them." We talked for hours, discussing everything from custody arrangements to financial support. We agreed on joint custody, with the kids splitting their time between our homes. Emily would stay in the apartment she had rented, and I would remain at my parents' house until I could find a new place. We would continue with counseling, but this time for the kids, to help them navigate the changes in their lives. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park, we fell into a reflective silence. There was a sense of finality, a bittersweet acceptance of the end of our marriage. Emily reached out and took my hand, a gesture that once would have brought comfort but now felt hollow. "Mike, despite everything, I want you to know that I did love you. I still do in a way. I'm sorry I ruined what we had." I squeezed her hand, feeling a flicker of the old connection between us. "I loved you too, Emily. But we can't live in the past. We have to move forward, for our sake and for the kids. I hope we can find some way to be friends, for them." She nodded, a small sad smile playing on her lips. "I hope so too. Goodbye, Mike. Goodbye, Emily." We parted ways, each of us carrying the weight of our shared history and the uncertain future ahead. The path to healing would be long and difficult, but I was determined to make it through, for my children and for myself. The last conversation with Emily had been painful but necessary, a final step in closing one chapter and beginning another. As I drove back to my parents' house, the early evening sky painted in hues of pink and orange, I felt a strange sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to navigate. I would find a way to rebuild my life, to find happiness and stability again. And in time, I hoped that Emily and I could find a way to co-parent amicably, to give Jason and Lily the love and support they deserved. The betrayal had changed everything, but it had also given me a new perspective. Life was fragile and unpredictable, but it was also filled with opportunities for growth and renewal. I was ready to face the future, whatever it might hold, with hope and determination. The days following our final conversation were filled with a flurry of activity as Emily and I worked to put our plans into action. There were legal matters to attend to, papers to sign, and countless details to work out. Each step brought a mix of relief and sadness, a reminder of the life we were leaving behind and the uncertain future ahead. Emily moved into her apartment, and I stayed with my parents while I searched for a new home. The kids were resilient, adapting to the new arrangements with a courage that made me proud and heartbroken at the same time. We explained to them as gently as possible what was happening, emphasizing that both Mommy and Daddy loved them very much and that the changes were not their fault. Counseling sessions for the kids began immediately. Jason, with his serious and thoughtful nature, asked many questions, trying to understand why his world had been turned upside down. Lily, younger and more sensitive, clung to us both, needing constant reassurance that she was still loved and safe. The therapist helped guide us through these difficult conversations, providing tools and strategies to support the children as they navigated their new reality. The legal process of divorce was straightforward, if emotionally draining. We agreed on joint custody, with a detailed schedule that allowed the kids to spend equal time with each of us. Financial matters were settled amicably. We both wanted to ensure that Jason and Lily would be well provided for, without adding unnecessary conflict to an already painful situation. Finding a new place to live proved to be a challenge. Every house I toured felt either too big or too small, too close to memories of our old life or too far from the familiarity I craved. Eventually, I found a modest, comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood not far from my parents. It had a small backyard where the kids could play, and enough space for us to build a new life together. Moving in was both a daunting task and a cathartic experience. I took the opportunity to purge items that carried too much emotional baggage, keeping only what was essential or truly meaningful. My parents helped with the move, their presence a steady source of support. The first night in the new house felt strange, the silence almost oppressive, but I knew it was the start of a new chapter. Co-parenting with Emily required careful coordination and constant communication. We set up a shared calendar to track the kids' schedules, school events, and extracurricular activities. We also established rules for transitions, aiming to make them as smooth and stress-free as possible for Jason and Lily. Despite the tension between us, we both understood the importance of presenting a united front for the sake of our children. Over time, a new routine emerged. The kids adjusted to splitting their time between two homes, and I began to find a rhythm in my new life. Weekdays were filled with work and parenting duties, while weekends were dedicated to quality time with Jason and Lily. I rediscovered old hobbies and interests that had been neglected during the turmoil of the past year. Slowly, I began to feel a sense of stability and even moments of genuine happiness. Emily and I maintained a civil relationship, focusing our interactions on the needs of the children. There were still moments of tension and unresolved hurt, but we worked hard to keep those feelings from affecting the kids. We attended school events and family gatherings together, presenting a cooperative front that, while not perfect, provided a sense of normalcy for Jason and Lily. Holidays were particularly challenging, requiring careful planning and compromise. We alternated major holidays, ensuring that the kids had time with both of us and extended family members. While it was difficult to spend some holidays apart from the children, I found solace in the fact that they were surrounded by love and support, no matter whose house they were in. As the months passed, the sharp edges of my anger and betrayal began to soften. I still felt the sting of Emily's infidelity, but it no longer consumed my every thought. I began to see her not just as the woman who had hurt me, but also as the mother of my children and a flawed human being who had made a terrible mistake. This shift in perspective didn't erase the pain, but it allowed me to start healing. One day, as I watched Jason and Lily play in the backyard, their laughter filling the air, I felt a sense of peace. Life had taken an unexpected turn, but we were finding our way through it together. The love and resilience of my children reminded me that there was still much to be grateful for, and that our family, though changed, could still thrive. Emily and I continued to work on our co-parenting relationship, attending occasional counseling sessions to improve our communication and cooperation. These sessions, while sometimes uncomfortable, helped us address lingering issues and find better ways to support each other as parents. We began to rebuild a sense of trust, not as spouses, but as partners in raising our children. In the process of rebuilding my life, I also reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I joined a local running club, rediscovering the joy of early morning runs that had once been a staple of my routine. I volunteered at Jason and Lily's school, finding fulfillment in contributing to the community and being more involved in their lives. The journey was far from over, and there would undoubtedly be more challenges ahead. But as I looked around my new home, filled with laughter and love, I felt a sense of accomplishment and hope. We had faced the storm and come out the other side, stronger and more resilient. The process of resolving the problems created by Emily's betrayal had been painful and exhausting, but it had also led to growth and new beginnings. I had learned to let go of the past, to forgive without forgetting, and to focus on the future. Most importantly, I had discovered the depth of my own strength and the unwavering love I had for my children. As the sun set on another day, I sat on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. Life was unpredictable and often unfair, but it was also full of potential and second chances. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, confident in my ability to navigate the journey with courage and hope. 2 years had passed since the tumultuous days of Emily's betrayal and our subsequent separation. The emotional wounds had largely healed, replaced by a cautious optimism about the future. My life had taken on a new rhythm, one defined by a balance of work, parenting, and personal growth. Most importantly, I had found love again, something I never thought possible in the dark days following the affair. Her name was Rachel, and she entered my life in the most unexpected way. We met at a community fundraiser for the local school, where both Jason and Lily attended. Rachel was a teacher there, and her passion for education and her genuine kindness immediately drew me in. She was everything I hadn't realized I was missing: compassionate, intelligent, and with a sense of humor that brightened even the dullest days. Our initial conversations were casual, centered around school events and mutual interests. But as we spent more time together, a deeper connection began to form. Rachel was patient and understanding, never pushing me to move faster than I was ready. She respected the complexities of my situation and was always mindful of Jason and Lily's needs. Introducing Rachel to my children was a delicate process. I was nervous about how they would react, worried that they might feel threatened or confused by this new person in our lives. But Rachel's warmth and genuine interest in them quickly won them over. She didn't try to replace Emily. Instead, she created her own unique bond with each of them. She became a friend and mentor to Jason, sharing his love for science and encouraging his curiosity. With Lily, she nurtured her creativity, spending hours drawing and painting with her. Rachel's presence brought a sense of stability and joy back into our home. We spent weekends exploring local parks, going on road trips, and hosting game nights that often ended in fits of laughter. She seamlessly integrated into our family, bringing with her a lightness that had been missing for so long. My parents adored her, appreciating the positive impact she had on both me and the kids. As our relationship deepened, Rachel and I had many conversations about the future. I was cautious, wanting to make sure that any steps we took were in the best interest of everyone involved. But the more time we spent together, the more certain I became that Rachel was not just a new chapter in my life. She was a partner I wanted to share my journey with. A year into our relationship, I proposed. It was a simple, intimate moment, just the two of us at a favorite spot by the lake where we often went to escape the chaos of everyday life. Rachel said yes, her eyes filled with tears of joy, and we embraced, knowing that we were embarking on a new adventure together. Our wedding was a small, joyful affair, attended by close family and friends. Jason and Lily played key roles in the ceremony, their smiles reflecting the happiness that Rachel had brought into our lives. Emily, to her credit, was gracious and supportive, acknowledging that our children's well-being was the priority. Blending our lives together had its challenges, but Rachel and I faced them as a team. We navigated the complexities of co-parenting, dealt with the occasional bumps in the road, and always prioritized open communication and mutual respect. Rachel's teaching background proved invaluable in helping Jason and Lily with their schoolwork and personal growth, and her positive influence was evident in their confidence and happiness. Professionally, things were also on an upward trajectory. With Rachel's encouragement, I took a leap and started my own software consulting firm. The flexibility allowed me to be more present for my children, and the business quickly flourished. Rachel's unwavering support and belief in me gave me the courage to pursue this new venture, and it felt incredibly rewarding to see it succeed. As the seasons changed, so did our lives. We moved into a new house, one that symbolized the fresh start we were building together. It was a place filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a brighter future. The kids adapted well to the changes, and our blended family grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Jason shared a project he was excited about, while Lily recounted a funny incident from school. Rachel and I exchanged a look of contentment, knowing that we had created a safe and loving environment for them to thrive in. The pain and turmoil of the past felt distant, replaced by the warmth of a new beginning. Reflecting on the journey, I realized how much I had grown. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy me had instead become a catalyst for transformation. I had learned to let go of anger and resentment, to forgive and to embrace the possibilities of the future. Rachel's love and partnership had been instrumental in this process, helping me to see that happiness was still within reach. Life was far from perfect, but it was full and rich in ways I had never imagined. I had found love again, not just with Rachel, but with myself and my role as a father. I was more present, more engaged, and more grateful for the little moments that made up our days. As I watched Jason and Lily grow, guided by Rachel's gentle hand and my renewed sense of purpose, I knew that we were building something beautiful. The scars of the past would always be there, but they were now reminders of the strength and resilience that had brought us to this point. Our story was one of second chances, of finding light after darkness, and of the enduring power of love and family. With Rachel by my side, I looked forward to the future with hope and excitement, ready to embrace whatever adventures lay ahead. The road had been long and challenging, but it had led me to a place of peace and fulfillment, a new life that was truly worth celebrating.